Okay, so we have our model. This model I will be sharing it on the forums. As so I will be sharing other tools that I have. I didn't make them, they were made by Margin S95 and Tattoo. Thanks Tattoo for releasing the, or more like sharing that tool with me. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. And now I will be releasing for the public. Thank you. Thanks, man. Okay, so we have our model. This is a basic shape. We have our frame. We have our lifts, the rear lifts, and we have our front lift. We have our axles, and as you can see, we don't have any shafts. So first, I will activate my screencast. Okay. What we're gonna do first, I'm gonna add some box to work as the transfer case, just to show you how to make the shafts work. There are two ways, and I will be showing you those later. Okay, so rear axle. How do we make animations, or more like bones and skins? First, we're gonna go into this sidebar. Pressing T, you pop it up. SD tools. We have. Let me expand the view. Okay, that should be enough. International fonts, don't activate this. Most of the time it makes the Blender crash, and you may see this like this. Some users will see it like this, in this tone. Okay, this adds a bone. Let's put this to 0.1 because 1 it's a 1 meter bone, and let's change our units to metrics. Okay, always remember to save. We don't want to lose our project, right? Okay, what do we do to add bones? As I said before, we need something called empty. A empty is a reference, and it could be a box, a axle, it could be a CDT, a underscore CDT. It can be anything. It's just a reference. What I do, I add a actual empty plain axis. As you can see, it got spawned at the center of the scene. That's because my 3D cursor was there, but I want to move it to here. What do? I select first this one, then this one by pressing shift and selection to active. Okay, this is way too big and I don't want it to be like this. I want something smaller. I go into this little, this is the data of the empty plane axis. I can change this right here. I can go with cones, spheres, or image. I'd rather use just a sphere or a plane axis. I changed the display to 0.2 for axles and 0.1 for inverse kinematic bones, but that's more advanced. I will be showing you how to make them right now. Okay, I have my empty mesh. I rename it to R or bone underscore rear. It doesn't matter. As I said, it's just a reference. I pop this side menu and I add a bone. As you can see, now it's in the same tone as this button. That means it's a valid mesh or valid reference. I click it, and now you can see my little bone, and you can see it here, Armature. Okay, now this is just for the rear, but I'm moving this reference and the axle doesn't move. Let me explain why that happens. As you can see here on vertex groups, I can add one, and I can go into edit mode, show weights. Blue means 0, red means 1. You can go from 1 to 0. If you go over 1, Blender will automatically change that to 1. Okay, since this is a axle, it will move with the wheels, it must be always 1. And it's 1 to what? To group? No. It's 1 to bone rear. I copy this and I paste it here. Bone rear. And guess what? It ain't moving still. So I go into modifiers and I add, let me show you how, a armature. And I go to object. I won't apply it. Keep that in mind, this doesn't get applied because it will damage everything. But now my axle moves. But hey forces, that's some string flex right there, you know. I will show you how to fix this, but I won't do it just to show you how the meshes, the lifts get animated. Here's a quick tip. Don't model your whole lift. Be lazy. Not lazy on the animations, lazy on the modeling of it. Why lazy? Because instead of going all the way, you can just do this, and that's actually okay. And if you want to deform it, you go right like this. Just like the center of where you want to start deforming, cursor tool selected, and you select everything, Shift W, and now you can deform it. Okay, but that's another thing. Let's hide this with H, and you can see here a small separation. This is something I got asked on Steam. How do I fix this? If I move it more, I go all the way, and now my mesh isn't looking good. Well, I got the solution for that. You select clipping. Okay, once you select clipping, it will stop by itself. You can move it on any other axis, but it won't go forward or backwards. Okay, now I have my lift. Lifts get weighted in two ways, from 1 to 0 for the up movement, and from 1 to 0 to the down movement. Now, how am I gonna animate the up movement if I just have one bone, or in this case 2, one for the rear and one from the front? For the front, easy. I add another empty mesh, or empty. Let's call this bone center, and move it all the way to here. It doesn't matter where it is. Again, this is just a reference. I change the size since this is a main bone. I go with 0.2 and that bone. Now I have two bones, one for the rear and one for the center. Okay, I delete this. Those were the old animations. Let me show you. 1 to the center and 1 to the axle. Now let's show you how I do this. Okay, back in the old days when I started making models, I used to just make bone center and bone rear. Okay, I always use C on R, so I might forget the names. I used to do this, go to tools, weight tools, and just do this. Let's see if I remember correctly. Oh, it's no longer on this blender. Weird. Yeah. Well, basically I did like a scale, but that deformed bad. Wasn't looking good at all. So, thanks to the tattoo, he gave me this tool, the number paster. What does the number paster does? Okay, first, the segments are from this one value to this one value. Since we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're gonna add a 6. Okay, the offset is our vertex, or more like vertex group that we're gonna add weights. So this will start from 0 to 1, so always keep that in mind. We click on start and we select our first value, bone rear, since this will be 0, and we paste with Control V on here, and we have 0 assigned, and now it changed. The offset tells us that this is our new value. We, instead of going with Control B, since Blender can use commas, we click there, go with Control B, move all the way to here and add a dot. Then we click assign. And why do I tell you to go lazy and just model one side and go with mirrors? Well, easy. What you apply here will be applied here and here and here with the y-axis, the x-axis. See, this is the only part that I'm going to weight or add a weight value. Okay, let's continue. We go with this one now, and we repeat the process again and again. See, I gotta thanks the Tattoo and Margin for making this tool, because it's awesome. Damn. Okay. And 1. I can go with Control B, since A is only 1, comma, it removes everything from the 1 to that. Now I have my fully weighted lift spring. Let's add the armature to show you something that you gotta keep in mind. Let's put this down. See what's happening? How do I fix this to test my animations are right? We click on the armature, go to pose mode, click A to select everything, Control A, apply pose as rest pose. And that's like saying reset X form on 3ds Max. Okay, now I have my rear axle bone. If I go up, everything is going up. Why is that? Control C. Because I only added the weights to the rear bone, but the center bone isn't weighted at all. What do? I do the same that I did here, but go lazy again, Shift D to duplicate, and just invert everything. Copy this name, remove this vertex group, copy to this one, and select one, Shift select the other, Control C, copy, vertex weights copied. I have bone rear and bone center. And let's click again, delete one, and oh, I deleted the wrong one. Let's check. Okay, this is the one. Oh. Okay, I had to do Okay, now that we have the two weights, we can check the animations. Oh wait, did I think? Center bone, center. Okay, see, keep that in mind. This is case sensitive, so if you're going with a uppercase and you write it with a lowercase, it won't work. That's how it happened here. This is a lowercase center, and I was doing a uppercase C on center. That was the reason why it wasn't working. Okay, now when I check my animations, it bends, but you can see this. Real life lifts don't do this. How do I fix that? I just add a 1 value to here, or I reduce this and go again with making all the weights. But let's do it the other way. Oh, from group. See, now it's all looking better. And I remove everything from here. Okay, now that I have my lift weighted, I can check the animations. It's working properly now. I apply the mirror modifier, go with a mirror modifier on the y-axis, apply it, and now I copy all the weights. Copy vertex weights. Oh wait, it's now. Okay. I have all the vertex weights to this one. Bone rear, let's change this to bone front. And we add another empty. Call bone front. So bone front, 0.2 since a main bone. ST tools, add bone. And since we added another bone, the animations will rotate again. Why? Because this new bone, if we go into edit mode, is not pointing to the y-axis, it's pointing to the z-axis, copying the rotation of this empty. We're gonna go into pose mode and apply pose as rest pose. Now it's fixing. And we do the same process to this axle. We go again bone front, weights to 1, and apply the armature. Well, select the armature. Okay, now I have a animated model, but this model isn't ready for spin tires. Why? Because it doesn't have a CDT. It needs a CDT. What most people will do is add a mesh roughly the same size that we need, and call it CDT. But this doesn't work with this exporter, or at least it hasn't worked for me at all. What we do, it's called chassis CDT, and now we hide the armature, select our chassis CDT, and let me close this. A to select everything, and Control P, set parent to object, keep transformation, apply rotation and scale, And now this chassis is the main root. Oh, if you want to change this to name, to have this name, you can click here and everything gets changed. Now, where was I? Now that we have this chassis as our main root of the model, we can rotate it at x minus 90 degrees. Don't worry, this is normal, it will flip like this. Why? Because our armature is following this, and now we have to apply rotation and scales. Don't worry, this is normal. We go into pose mode and apply pose as rest pose. Now our animations are spin tires ready. But I don't want to work this way, it's hard. We can do two things. We can rotate blender, but still it's confusing, or we can add a empty, call it rotation, and power it, keep transform, and rotate this 90 degrees, and don't apply rotation scale to it. Or actually we can, no, let me go into global, local view, and actually we can. Now let's import this to Blender. Oh, maybe actually not. Let's do some UV mapping to this to show you how to do UVs. We go into the composite view, compositing. It will pop like this, but we can drag this to the upside. Why do we want to do UV maps? First, to have actual mud on our meshes. Second, because that way we can add textures. Now, how do we UV map? Let's go into the UV editing for a better looks, to have more space. Let's add a UV map to this mesh. Let's first disable this. Now we have our lifts showing the vertex. We go into UV and wrap. For this time I will use Smart UV project. I don't normally use this, I don't like it at all, because it creates islands like this, and if you have a low spec PC like I have, you will have all sorts of seams are separation, black lines everywhere where this separates. Let me show you. If I click this, I will be clicking. Let me disable the weight displays. I will be seeing a black line all the way here. This line will be a black line in my screen. I don't like it at all. What I do is I select this part and go into edge select this part, and I add a seam. This is a quick example. If you make seam, now we have a full leaf model, a seamless leaf model. That will be this. Let me make a new and try and move all my leaves model. And move all my leaf UVs to untitled. Let's go into color grid and alt sit. You see, it's a constant B5. B5 is here, then goes to A5. A5 is here and goes all the way up. I like this way more than the Smart UV unwrap. And that's how I unwrap a model. Okay, now I can select this and this, then this right here and this right here, add another seam, and that's how I unwrap a cylinder. I call it backwards origami. It's like doing origami in a reverse way. So enough chit chat. I will pause the video, do all the unwraps to all the model. Oh, maybe not. Let me show you how to bake a ambient occlusion forces style. I normally don't do AO maps, I do full renders. I like them more. They're clear, they don't have as many shadows, and overall look better. Let me hide this. Let me go into fall off 2, simulation distance 1, multiply 0.5, and if I render this, it will look like this. Okay, let's add some shaders to it. Put it to gray or black. Let's go into add modifier and split 55. It will give me a nice curvy but edgy lift. Remove everything from view. Go into odd bake, full render, clear, 3px margin, and bake. We see baking. This black spot is actually our axle mesh being in the way. And now if we go into texture view mode, we have a nice rendered lift spring. Okay, you can pack the image. I will actually do this. I want you to have this for the next part that I'm gonna show you. Okay, we have our model. Let's import it. Chassis. Okay, apply, scales, file, export, STDirectX, mods. This is my wrong mods folder. I press B to go back, and Spintar Smart Runner Editor, Media, Mods. Let's save it on 2001 TJ Crawler, trucks, and toot underscore 4x4, and save it. Now that it's ported, you see I didn't apply this. Okay, now we load the editor, we do the path, which I guess you should have already done. Once we have this, okay, we can do the rest of it. You see here, 4x4. We double click it, create a new mesh file, cut this one at a number or on something with lowercase letters. I do uppercase all the time, and that gets me frustrated. And we open this by clicking trucks and this little folder thing. Okay, this is our 4x4, and we drag this to Notepad++. Okay, you see here, combine X mesh file to 4x4, close. This is a tag. If I told you check your tags, this is a tag. Okay, we have now on our editor, let's refresh it and load to 4x4 chassis. Oh, it's actually trying to load. Oh, weird. Oh, that's because I parent everything to the rotation. Let me redo this. Select everything again to chassis. Get transformations. This is how your hierarchy should look. Okay, file again. Export DirectX. Export. And now when we reload here, got our model. But hey forces, it's to a side. That's because we applied rotations here. It's 90 degrees minus apply rotation scale x 90 degrees. File, export. This is something that's gonna happen to you a lot. Trust me, I have exported a million of files just because I fuck up in small parts. Okay, we have our model. We can check that it has animations either by moving this or moving the H-axle. And now our model is all crooked. We reset the matrix. Okay, but it's textures less. What do we do now? We go into Program, Combine, Xmesh, double click it, Materials and Socket Points. This is important. This is for the shafts to work. Materials, Diffuse Map, Mesh Ports, 2 sides, and Shift Alt F if you have the Spintars plugin tools. Format the XML. Now diffuse map. I think we don't have any at the moment, but we can do one from Spintars or any diffuse map. So you click here, let's say TJ crawler, and you select any of these files, TGAs, JPEGs, PNGs, PMPs. Even this game even loads how is it called, DDS and raw TGAs. Raw TGAs are different than TGAs. But anyway, let's save this. Let's call it dude score 4x4 underscore D underscore A and enter. Image, save as image. We go into our recent folders, BB, textures, trucks, and here it is. I will save it as a PNG. Now we go here, since it's a lift, we select only the lift. Add a comma, must be a comma, not a dot, and lift 1 to side, true. Diffuse map, file, TJ crawler, and take to 4x4. Save and update. Now we have our textures. Now, why do we want to apply the edge split? You can see this shaft has shapes. It has hexagons, it has smooth shaded parts and box shaded. But this one, where I didn't apply the edge split, looks like this. Now I can add the best of the best textures, but it will look like this, shapeless. We do the same. We apply our edge split here. We can apply a modifier only if it's on top. If we do it on the bottom, it says blade modifier was not first, may not result as expected. This can make the armature bend in other ways, so we move it up to avoid any issues. Export ST DirectX to the 4x4, and then again we update. Okay, now forces. I want to add a shaft. How do I do that? We have this and this. We can do it two ways. We go into here, metric, none, and we select the part that I want to have my shaft pointed at, and now I select here. This is my output of the transfer case and my input for the shaft. Copy here, but first socket point, name and position. The name, this will be TF for transfer case, or more like T for transmission, and R for rear. The pose, I'm gonna go with this. This is the X value. I press tab. This will be our sit value. I add another point and comma, and this will be our minus value. Why minus? Because it should be rotated. Oh wait, this is our height value actually. The sit is our height value. Okay, it's actually good. Now I duplicate this and format my XML, see, and I go again with the rear, which is my 3D cursor. As I said on my previous video, Blender users, we get a pain in the ass for using Blender, but we get our 3D cursor. Just joking, people. Trying to be fun. And or Y-axis. Okay. Now I can do it the other way, which is by pressing here, adding 0, 0, 0, and pressing. Let me actually show you. Let's go with 0, 0, 0. Pause. And fuck. Okay, let's close this to have always our CDT selected, and pause. You see, it's on the 0, 0, 0 value, but if I want to move it, I don't drag it like I will do with maps. I simply click, and now it's selected. I press OK. Voila, our values are now here. Let's do the front this way. This will be axle rear, AR, TF. TF is not for the fuck. Go over here, duplicate this one, and AR. Okay, now do the same. Pause. And here is. Okay, now I have my shafts pointed at and my diffuse. Now let's add a diffuse multiplier. What is a diffuse multiplier? When you don't have a diffuse map, you can use a diffuse multiplier which has RGBA multiplier equals 0, 0, 0, 0. This is for black and full transparency. We'll go with 255 full solid image And for color I will go with red, or more like gray. Let's go with 50 50 50, and remove the mesh part because I want the rest of the truck or the frame to have that multiplier applied to, not, and avoid the lifts getting that because I have the mesh parts. Save it and update. Now I have my multiplier applied. Okay,